Hello or hello again. I'm Robert Allen, co-author of the book, The 4 Maps of Happy, Successful People. And this is the third in a series of short videos where I'll be sharing what I believe is the recipe for a successful life in whatever field you choose. To recap, I believe the most successful people in life have 4 things in common. 1, they have clarity. They know what they want and they know why they want it. Number 2, they have anticipation. They have an incredibly effective approach to overcoming challenges, big and small. Number 3, they have a ritual, a habit of essential things they do every day. 4, they have a plan. They know how to structure their tasks and their time. They get things done. Now, in the last 2 videos, we talked about clarity and anticipation. And what we were really talking about was about getting your mind right, or getting your mindset. So let's say that you have the perfect mindset, but that's not enough on its own to be a happy, successful person. We live in a world that demands action. You have to go out into the real world and get things done. So what do you have to do to get things done? I've done a lot of reading and studying success in my life, and I found across the board that successful people have rituals. They have a fixed set of habits that they do every single day in usually the same order. And they don't just fill these rituals with busy work. They've identified the most important things in their life, and those things are the things that they fill their ritual with. Now, in this video, we talk about the power of rituals, and we'll be drawing what your personalized, super effective ritual might look like. So I'm going to go back to my little whiteboard, and if you've been reading the book, The 4 Maps of Happy, Successful People, or if you've been watching the videos in this series, you can imagine what's going to come next. We're going to start with a simple image of a frowny-faced person living a limited, bounded life who wants a better life, a smiley-faced life, in the ultimate dream home, living a dream lifestyle. And it is a climb to go from the before picture to your after picture. As we talked about last video, we talked about the challenges that we have to overcome to get here. Now, there's something that happens in the ritual, because this is the ritual map. And usually as we begin climbing, there's this process that looks like a compound interest curve, because it is slow at first. It's almost imperceptible until eventually, after compounding, after the growth starts to build on the growth, eventually you have this upturn, this spike upwards that usually takes many, many months, sometimes years to develop. This upward surge of compound interest. And there's a little story that reminds me of this, about the ant in Aesop's fable. The little ant that's gathering food for the winter time, compared to the grasshopper who is just eating everything in sight and is not saving up, is not planning, is not building for the ultimate long term, but it's just consuming everything. And as the wintertime comes, the grasshopper starves, and of course that little ant that takes those daily steps towards the ultimate goal, the ultimate objective here, that little ant succeeds. Now, the formula for success is simple. Consistent deposits plus time equals success. And I'm a firm believer that if you keep at something, you will be successful at it. But so many people quit. They get caught in the whirlwind of daily distractions, and they're paralyzed by their fears and their anxieties. A routine is by definition routine. It's rather boring. It's a little step that you take consistently day after day, like the ant, towards your ideal lifestyle. So what should make up your routine? Well, only the important stuff. And how do we decide what's important? I want to share with you a story that I learned as a young man from my mentor, Stephen Covey. He tells the story in his book, actually, First Things First, about a professor who's trying to teach a class of students about priorities. And he pulls out a glass filled with big rocks, and he puts it on the counter, and he asks the students, is this jar full? And they all said, sure, it's full of rocks. And then he takes out a smaller jar filled with pebbles, and he pours the pebbles into the spaces and the crevices, and finally fills it up with big rocks and small pebbles, and asks the students, is this jar full? They're on to him by now, and so they say no. And he says, you're right. He pulls out a small jar of sand, and he pours the sand in to fill up all the way to the top, and asks, is this jar full? And no, it's not full yet. And he takes out a jar of water, pours it in until finally it overflows. And then he asks them, what's the lesson that I'm trying to teach you? And one of the students pipes up and says, well, you can always put more stuff in the jar. And he said, no, that's not the lesson. The lesson is if you don't put the big rocks in first, then you can't get them in at all. And your routine should be full of big rocks. What are your big rocks? And I've found that the most important tasks of each day fall into one of three categories. As you develop your daily routine, I encourage you to take one from each of these categories. Body. Do something to take care of the amazing machine of your body. Brain. Do something to develop and nourish your intellect. And being. This is the most important. Do something to connect yourself with your higher power, or with the human energy all around you. So back to my whiteboard. Let's draw that jar to remind us that there are big rocks we want to put in our jar every single day. And I'm going to ask you, what are the three B's of your life? Body, brain, and being. And as you think about those things, I want you to think about exactly how you could fit those into a ritual. You're building your ritual. And throughout my life, I've had a semi-regular regimen, but it wasn't a daily ritual until in my mid-50s when I was involved in a major car accident that almost killed me. A few weeks thereafter, I began a daily ritual, which I've continued until this day. Body, brain, and being. As soon as I started my daily practice, life improved dramatically. Now, if you want to be a successful person, you need to set a ritual. It's not something you can procrastinate. It's not something you can fake. Vince Lombardi famously said, the will to win is not nearly as important as the will to prepare to win. And that's what a ritual is. It's hard to get up and get your ritual done. There's not a lot of glamour in it. This is ant time. What's your ritual? Commit to it. And I'll see you in the next video, which is all about planning to reach your ideal lifestyle. See you there.